Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So now that we have covered Apocalypse, it's time for Professor X himself, right? He has been long anticipated character and he's quite complex for sure. He took my head and my brain for a spin, but the most kind of like crazy thing about him initially, at the very least, seems his synergies, but we're gonna get to that a bit later. First, we're gonna cover the basics. So his prestige is quite decent in the upper kind of like tier. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's slightly lower than the Apocalypse. As a 5-star, as a 6-star, I think it's pretty much exactly the same, or again, very close to that. Still quite high, nothing kind of like game shattering, not the very top, but towards the kind of like so-called prestige champions. It's obviously a mutant, and then he has several different new abilities, like vigilance. Well, we saw vigilance already on Silver Surfer, but he has mind control and cerebro charges, which are new and unique. So his strength, when Professor X has gained enough channeling charges, he can bypass miss and evade effects very reliably. That is definitely going to be useful. He's going to be another miss counter. Remains to be seen whether going to be best away than miss counter or kind of up there, but he has those abilities. Now controller, with the combined use of his Falter, unblockable, and mind control abilities, opponents will be playing on Professor Stems each fight. Now that's probably a bit of an overstatement, but make the most of Professor X by pairing him up with other mutants and X-Men. As Professor X wins fights, he gains more cerebro charges, and that boosts his synergies. And that's kind of like one main thing that I don't like too much about Professor X myself, because his synergies are definitely insane and crazy good, but you do have to win fights with Professor X to make those synergies insane, because at the very base they are good but not crazy broken, but once you win some fights, gain those cerebro charges, he definitely has some extremely powerful synergies that has me intrigued. Now weaknesses: low health, tech champions, and power control, which is fair enough, but let's go through his abilities. Mutation, always active. Professor X's first medium attack is the only basic attack that makes contact with his opponents. All of Professor X's attacks deal energy damage. Now that immediately makes sure that he can bypass stuff like Electro's damage back, because you can just parry, start combo with light, finish with medium, and you take 0 damage back, and you can obviously also bypass Korg because all of his hits are energy damage. So that is, in my opinion, quite useful in itself. Immune to reverse controls, that's nice, cool. And now we're gonna go with Falter. When Professor X would be struck by a basic attack, he inflicts a Falter passive, causing 100% of the opponent's attacks to miss for 2 seconds. This ability has 20-second cooldown, but starts on a 10-second cooldown. Now, this is gonna be his biggest defensive pain point, because every time initially the fight, when you're gonna start the fight, he's gonna falter you, right? And there's not gonna be much you can do about it. And now imagine this. Professor X is stun immune, and you can't gain that opening from a parry stun. Whenever you would land your intercept or would try to punish that heavy attack or whatever, you're gonna be automatically faltered. And that's definitely gonna be problematic. That's gonna immediately make him a huge pain on the defense. No questions asked. So I have absolutely zero doubt that within a month or two we are all going to absolutely hate Professor X, especially with more and more nodes like stun reflection and stun reversal, or whatever they are called, being added to the contest. So we have stun immune champions, we have debuff immune champions, we have champions that reflect stun back at you, so on and so forth. I mean, nodes that make him stun immune, debuff immune, and reflects stun back at you. So he's definitely going to be a very problematic defender with a certain node combination, and that immediately already kind of like sends shivers down my spine. When the opponent lands a special attack, Falter is removed. That's cool, but you need to gain power in order to land the special attack, and that, again, as I mentioned before, will not be the easiest thing to do. Avoiding an attack while dodging backwards during Falter's cooldown reduces the duration by 1 second. So when you use Professor X yourself, if you trigger dexterity, you reduce the cooldown and are able to use it more frequently. But this is also going to give Professor X quite an interesting way to capitalize offensively, and you could potentially be able to use him similarly as Ghost for whenever his Falter is not on cooldown. You can just stand there, let opponent dash in at you with a basic attack, and then you would be able to simply counter it just like you do with Ghost. So that certainly could make him much more user-friendly and actually give him quite a bit of offensive utility as well. Now, how persistent charge mechanic, he starts each quest with 1 Cerebro charge, gain 1 each time when he wins a fight, and they don't really do much in the fight itself, but they increase the potency of his synergies, and I think they also increase the potency of his level 3. Now, channeling, this is where things get complicated. This channeling ability set is definitely kind of like something that you need to play about in order to have full understanding and control over it. I can read it, I kind of understand it, but it's quite complex, and how viable, how easy these things are to do kind of will remain to be seen in an actual fight. It's definitely going to make him quite, I don't know, brain heavy to fight him, where you have to think a lot of what you're doing. Anyways, Professor X channels his telepathic abilities, gaining 10 channeling charges per second at end of his special 1 and 2 attacks and while charging his heavy attack. So that's how he's gaining his channeling charges, special 1, special 2, charging his heavy attack. When power burned or drained, lose 50 channeling charges. So basically, power burn champions, tech champions are going to do significantly better than any other champions against Professor X, I would say. Whilst at 25 plus channeling charges against non-tech champions, Professor X cannot be evaded and gains vigilance passives, allowing all attacks to bypass miss. Now that is important. Keep in mind, it doesn't work on Guillotine 2099. Keep in mind, will not work on Ghost, but at large, countering it, evade, countering miss, definitely useful abilities, and 25 channeling charges, by the looks of it, doesn't seem to be too hard to acquire. Now, while at 50 plus channeling charges, using the 4th light attack inflicts mind control on the opponent. When activating a special attack with 100 channeling charges, automatically inflict mind control. So mind control is bastardly OP, right? And we're gonna get to that in a second. Channeling and canceling. Complete channel or cancel by heavy attacking, gain plus 10 channeling charges. So that is how you can complete or cancel your channeling, and you will be able to do inputs during special attacks as well. Cancel by blocking, charging a heavy attack, or using light attack, medium, or special attack. Gain a prowess buff, increasing special attack damage by 40% for 36 seconds. Cancel by dashing backwards, refresh the duration of all prowess effects on Professor X. This basically is the bit where it gets tricky. So when you land a heavy attack, where you activate a heavy attack, or at end of special 1 and 2, he starts channeling and he starts gaining these charges. Then the next input you will register will determine what kind of effect you gain. If you cancel it by attacking with a heavy attack, you gain more of these channeling charges. If you cancel by blocking, charging a new heavy, or using a light, medium, or a special attack, you gain a prowess buff. If you cancel it by dashing backwards, you refresh the prowess buff. Now, how all of this will fit into his playstyle and how fluid is it going to be obviously remains to be seen, and that will largely determine how good of a champion he is, in my opinion, in addition to what kind of damage numbers he puts out. Now, mind control, and this is the kind of like crazy bit. Mind control lasts 0.5 seconds for every 10 channeling charges. So at 100, it would last for 5 seconds, and if you can go up to 200, that would be 10 seconds. And I'd assume in longer fights, you would pretty much perhaps be able to maintain it up indefinitely by finishing your combos with a 4th light attack, and then opponents mind controlled, or just launching special attacks, right? Mind control's duration is paused during Professor X special attacks, except while channeling. And Professor X special attacks are unblockable and cost up to 70% less power based on the number of channeling charges, reduced 40% against X. So, opponent is locked from gaining power or using any of their special attacks, and your special attacks cost 70% less power. That does sound busted. That does sound like you are going to be able to spam special attacks quite frequently, basically launch special attack, maybe drop a combo, launch another special attack, so on and so forth, and nuke into the opponent. So that mind control is going to be kind of like his ace in a hole, something that you work towards too by gaining a lot of channeling charges, and then once you have, you just completely shredding the opponent. They don't gain power, they can't use special attacks, and you save a lot of power dropping your own special attacks. Special 1 gains you 25 channeling charges on activation. Neat. Special 2, the last 3 hits deal a burst of 2112 energy damage that scales with prowesses. So this is going to be your huge damage special attack. And special 3, gain a prowess buff for each cerebro charge, increasing special attack damage by 60% and lasting 40 seconds. But don't forget that you can refresh your prowess buffs, and if they can stack up to 4 and each last 40 seconds, so you can work up to some very, very significant damage. But how easy it is, again, it's not as simple to say. And signature ability, Krakoan's Sovereignty, well below 75 channeling charges gain 1 charge per second. While defending, this rate is doubled and charges are gained for the entire fight. Now that I don't like, that I definitely don't like, because again, it seems to be offensively overbalanced and just giving additional artificial benefits to a champion while he's defending. Would it be so hard to a content where it's relevant, just make that a node? Like Mysterio has a node where if he's at 3 poison gas charges, convert that into a poison or whatever. We see frequently, it's additional node, but here again, it just seems that he's getting more and more defensive buffs just so our life is harder and he can smack it. And he's already probably going to be quite tricky to play against. So I'm not a fan of that design and signature ability, but basically just gaining more channeling charges obviously is going to be beneficial. And when you're facing off against him, you are probably just going to have to use a tech champion or a very heavy power control champion. And also gain up to 50% promise potency, scaling with the opponent's max power meter. That can be really beneficial because you're going to be gaining quite significant amount of prowess. But scaling with opponent's power meter, I never feel too comfortable with those abilities. We'll see how effective it is. It's decent, but again, that signature ability seems useful, definitely. But I heavily dislike that additional bonus on defense, but hey. And now the most important bit, but I'm going to try and rush through these. Basically, all Professor X synergies works on all mutants and X-Men, and then they gain additional benefits to champions that he synergized with. First synergy he has with himself, and that is all mutants and X-Men except Professor X, plus 25% special attack damage for each cerebro charge, max 100%. Now this is crazy. Think about how hard Colossus already hits. Think about how hard Magneto is going to hit. Think about how crazy Sunspot hits, and double that damage basically, right? Or at the very least add substantial bonus to that. So that is a crazy synergy at 25% with himself. It's already decent, but if you have him at 4 charges, some of the mutants are going to be able to produce some absolutely filthy damage. Now we have with Wolverine X23, and most importantly Colossus, all mutants and X-Men except Professor X, plus 18% poison resistance for each cerebro charge. This is actually quite interesting because 70% poison resistance or even 50% poison resistance would potentially make any mutant champion into a mini Deadpool when you're running Suicide Mastery. So again, that is extremely powerful. And then for Colossus, it also gives you 1 indefinite armor up buff, granting 15% armor rating. And that will also help you obviously ramp up Colossus quicker because your level 2's double armors and that initial armor certainly will help into ramping you up. Now against Wolverine X23 plus 15% critical rating is kind of like meh. But the big thing is that, yeah, you can make sure that all mutants heal from Suicide Masteries, and that is quite huge. It would be even bigger if you didn't have to actually ramp up Professor X. Now, the Storm, Pyramid X, and Emma Frost, all mutants, 15% prowess effect duration for each cerebro charge, max 60%. It's kind of decent, especially for Storm X, where the duration is quite important. Now Storm Pyramid X plus 20% shock potency. Cool. Emma Frost 30% increased critical rating, scaling with Emma Frost's power meter. Now that's kind of good. That's gonna basically make sure that she crits all the time on her level 2s if she has enough promise charges. Still kind of neat, but not as great as the Colossus one, I think. Okay, so now we have all mutants and X-Men except Professor X, and that is with both Cyclopses and Phoenix. Once per fight, when a champion would be knocked out, immediately regenerate 7.5% of their max health for each Cerebro charge, max 30%. So every mutant champion kind of becomes a little Phoenix. Again, definitely useful, and too bad that it's with Cyclops and Phoenix though, because those are not really the most current meta-defining champions. It does give decent bonus to Cyclops, plus 100% critical damage rating and inflict armor break, reducing armor rating by 20% for 5 seconds. Cyclops needs so much more to become a good champion, but synergy with Phoenix, granting whenever you enter your overloaded state, Phoenix gains an indefinite Fury passive, increasing her attack by 60% and stacks up to 5. So Phoenix can gain up to 300% damage increase, and that sounds quite insane. That might give Phoenix some serious hitting power. Again, these days champions need so much more than just attack, but at the very least it will be interesting to see how hard Phoenix can actually punch now. And now next one with Nightcrawler, Archangel, and Beast. All mutants and X-Men except Professor X gain 6% of bar power every 10 seconds for each Cerebro charge, max 24%. Again, every 10 seconds, 24% of bar power. I don't think that is too big of a power gain. It's gonna be neat, it's gonna be nice, but I don't think it's like the biggest thing. For some champions it might be extremely important, like Storm Pyramid X maybe, and some other ones who kind of rely on filling up their power bars as quickly as you can. Definitely not the champions that it actually synergizes with though. Nightcrawler and Archangel, 30% bleed potency. I don't think that's like the biggest bonus, because Archangel really doesn't care too much about the bleed potency, it's all about the neurotoxins. And Beast, increase the duration of freestyle and acrobatic combo success by 5 seconds. Neat, nice, okay, cool. It's Beast. Now Drug M with Magneto, and both Magnetos and Iceman. So obviously this will probably be quite frequently used synergy. Gain a mental barrier with 2.5% of current health. Basically goes up to max 10%. And whenever you take damage, this barrier consumes 75% of the damage taken instead. And that basically gives you kind of like one-off Invisible Woman's force field, which is definitely going to help you mitigate some of the chip damage, parry damage, but it's not the most game-changing ability, but it's with Magneto, so it's kind of like free added extra, so why not, right? When Ice Armor shatters, all Frostbite charge expire. Okay, so with Iceman, when Ice Armor shatters, all Frostbite effects expire instantly. That's nice. I wonder if this gives them the added damage or not. Okay, Magneto House effects. Guidance bonus attack rating is increased by a flat 5% or 15% on the final node of the quest, so that makes Magneto's unique synergy better. And Magneto plus 15% attack rating while fighting metal champions, so he gets even more attack against metal champions. Cool. So there we have it. We have pretty much went through everything, quite a lot there. Many of the synergies definitely gonna be very useful. He's kind of like a Heimdall, I guess, for the mutant class, with more powerful synergies than Heimdall's, just also with a ramp up requirement in it. I do expect him to be more offensively capable champion than Heimdall, even though Heimdall again has that true strike, but what he does is lacks damage. I hope Professor X does not lack damage, so I can actually ramp him up, and that is gonna be 100% where Professor X's actual place in the game will lie. If he's gonna be fluid, good enough champion to use offensively in hard content like Alliance War or Act 6, and you can actually realistically use him for plenty of fights to ramp him up, then he's obviously going to be quite significant, because some of those bonuses are absolutely insane. And don't forget, obviously, all of these mutant champions typically synergize with each other anyway, so there can be some very crazy synergy summit. If he's gonna be a bit of a dud in terms of his damage numbers, then I expect him to be a defender and a novelty champion, kind of like for very cool videos, for some showcase cheeses and stuff like that. So it entirely depends on how practical it is to use him with that channeling mechanic, and what are his damage numbers, whether he can hit hard enough to actually be used in serious content. All that being said, I'm certainly looking forward to it. At the very least, both Apocalypse and Professor X are going to be extremely unique and interesting additions. I will try my best to acquire both of them. If possible, I might book in some holidays, maybe grind for one of them as a 5-star or something. I don't know. But one thing is for sure. They are worth acquiring at the very first glance, both of them. Which is not something I can sincerely say for most champions released this year, and that makes a positive change. Whether BAMF has done Apocalypse and Professor X justice still remains to be seen, but the beginning of it, the ability breakdowns and descriptions, are certainly hopeful. And yeah, that will do for today's video. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, share this video with your friends. And yeah, I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.